maternity leave of 3 months, health coverage, and a safe workplace. Now, how many here can safely say that they enjoy these rights as employees, and they make sure that their employees, that is the employer, makes sure that their domestic worker enjoys these rights? Today we are here to take stock. How far have we come in making domestic work decent work? I'll not ask you to raise your hand whether you live by these rights, but as we ponder on that, I would like to recognize the presence of our partners, who include Grace Banya from ILO CAPSA, Edith Morogo, the Executive Director from the Center for Domestic Training and Development, Ms. Blandina Bobson, the Director of Programs from Oxfam, Millicent Muli from the Ministry of Labor, representing the Labor Commission, John Kadhiga from the Department of Immigration, and many others who we will keep recognizing as we go on with this program. At this juncture, allow me to invite to the stage Ninga Flames to give us a bit of entertainment. The band, karibuni sana. Ninga Flames, are you still here? As we wait for Ninga Flames to come to the stage, perhaps we can start with welcoming remarks from the Director of Programs, Blandina Bobson, that is from Oxfam. She's the Gender, Justice and Women's Representative, Governance and Accountability, Natural Resources. She has 13 years experience running these programs. Karibu sana, Blandina.
Thank you, Mashirima. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. What happened to the energies? Yeah. All protocol observed, and the chief guest for today, of course, the domestic workers, the most important people in this room today. It is such a great pleasure to be gathered here today to celebrate the domestic workers who, according to Oxfam, are the unsung heroes and invisible heroes of this nation. Their contribution to the well-being of our societies and our economy cannot be questioned. We all know that if it were not for them, we would not all be here today. Most of us, we would be at home taking care of, our households and our children. However, despite them being the glue that holds our economy together and ensuring the well-being of our societies and families, and communities at large, they remain invisible, they remain undervalued, and their work goes unrecognized. The injustices and inequalities that domestic workers continue to experience in their places of work surmount to violations of human rights, and we cannot afford to take a step back and watch this happen under our watch. And so in Oxfam, we believe that the undervaluing of women's work, including domestic work, is a massive, invisible problem, entrenching poverty, inequalities, and damaging well-being across all countries and regions. It is hardwired in our economies and societies. This predominant perception of work also excludes work that is done in private homes. Care remains a private issue rather than a public policy, and this then undermines the status, protection, and voices of carers and domestic workers. It is also a problem of lack of collective voices and agency. So domestic workers are isolated by term poverty, by their employers, by cultures of not speaking out, and too often by domestic and workplace violence. And today's theme on dignity in labor, re-envisioning decent work for domestic workers, is a clarion call for all of us here as a government, as civil society organizations, as UN agencies, businesses, private sector, employers of domestic workers, and the domestic workers themselves, to play our part in changing the status quo by addressing social norms, by shifting narratives and perceptions towards those that demonstrate the recognition and value for domestic work, supporting the domestic workers to claim their rights and shift national and company policies, including the ratification of the ILO Convention C-189 and 190, breaking silos, and unlocking resources to strengthen coalitions and domestic workers' unions, which help to transform the domestic workers' agencies and leadership. And lastly, to shift the current economic paradigm by shifting our understanding of work and the economy beyond paid formal employment and monetized markets. This will then transform labor force surveys, national and international frameworks, and the measurement of work, including formal and informal, paid and unpaid care in domestic work, is critical, and it will make us value domestic work more and make it more visible. As Oxfam in Kenya and the wider Confederation, we continue to pledge our support to the government and other stakeholders to facilitate the strengthening of both systems and structures, both informal and formal, towards the realization of the recognition of domestic work as valued work, and the realization of both their labor rights and human rights. When we do this, the overall goal is that we will all be contributing towards achieving gender equality in this country. A special appreciation, of course, goes to our donors, the Global Affairs Canada and the Hewlett Foundation, whose resources have made it possible for us to convene today and celebrate the domestic workers. To the domestic workers that are present here today, we see you, we hear you, and we value the work that you're doing. We probably are not doing enough, to demonstrate this, but we do pledge that going forward, we will work with you towards challenging this status quo and make a difference. I wish all of us a happy celebrations on this important day. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Blandina. And at this juncture, allow me to welcome to the stage the Executive Director from the Center for Domestic Training and Development. That's Ms. Edith Murogo. And just to let you know that if you want to know more about financial awareness for domestic workers, Ms. Murogo is your woman. Karibu.
Hamjamboni. Madada zetu domestic workers, oye! Mimi sitakubali mnyamaze hivyo. We have to light the room, okay? Si mnanijuaga, eh? Yeah, so happy International Domestic Workers Day. I think ni siku tunajivunia sisi wote, wafanyikazi wa nyumbani na wale wanapenda kazi za nyumbani. Yeah, some of us may not be domestic workers, but we identify as domestic workers because we are passionate about domestic work. Now, that is why we are here. So today is a very great day for all of us. I want to appreciate our Principal Secretary of Labor, representatives from Oxfam, ILO, KUDEIHA, the Domestic Workers Union, FKE, the Global Justice Group, and others. But most importantly, I want to celebrate our esteemed guests today, who are the domestic workers of Kenya, not the domestic workers of Nairobi, the domestic workers of the domestic workers of Kenya. Yeah, the domestic workers of Kenya. So good morning and welcome to this momentous occasion as we gather to celebrate International Domestic Workers Day 2024. This year, our theme is Dignity in Labor, Re-envisioning Decent Work for Domestic Workers, a theme that resonates deeply with our mission and the work we tirelessly pursue. Today we come together to honor the unsung heroes of our homes and the backbone of our economy, our domestic workers. These individuals, often working quietly in the background, are fundamental to the smooth running of our households. That's why we are here. and by extension, our society. That is why we have a thriving economy. They provide essential services that allow us to pursue our careers, nurture our families, and build our communities. In 2022, I want to give a bit of background. In 2022, CDTD took a pioneering step by organizing the first International Domestic Workers' Day celebration in Kenya. It was a groundbreaking event that highlighted the indispensable role of domestic workers and initiated a much-needed conversation about their rights and working conditions. The success of that inaugural event was a catalyst for change. In 2023, we were thrilled to witness a significant milestone. Through our persistence, advocacy, and with unwavering support of our partners, we were able to partner with the Ministry of Labor and Social Services to adopt this celebration as a national event. This was a historic achievement reflecting a growing recognition of the importance of domestic workers and a commitment to ensuring their rights and welfare. I extend my heartfelt gratitude to the Ministry of Labor for their continued dedication and for once again leading this event in 2024. Today's celebration would not be possible without the invaluable contributions of our key stakeholders and partners. To Oxfam, whose vision for a just and sustainable world aligns perfectly with our mission. To KUDHEIHA, who have been steadfast advocates for the rights of domestic workers. To the Global Justice Group, whose efforts in promoting justice and equity are deeply appreciated. And to all the organizations and individuals who are part of our planning committee, thank you. Your dedication and hard work have been instrumental in bringing this event to life. I also want to appreciate my incredible team at the Center for Domestic Training and Development. Your passion, commitment, and tireless efforts have made today's celebration a reality. You are the backbone of our organization, and your work ensures that the voices of domestic workers are heard and respected. Allow me to briefly introduce who we are at the Center for Domestic Training and Development and the work that we do. We are a dynamic women's rights movement dedicated to reshaping perceptions surrounding domestic work and care work, eradicating child labor, combating forced labor and human trafficking, and ending all forms of violence against girls and women. We are dedicated to championing the protection and empowerment of survivors and upholding their dignity and agency so that they can recover and thrive. Central to our cause is the promotion of financial inclusion and the advancement of dignified livelihood opportunities underpinned by equity, respect, and empowerment. We are steadfast in our commitment to driving policy reforms, spearheading social justice, and implementing educational initiatives aimed at fostering fair, equitable, and rewarding labor migration experiences in a world free from gender-based violence. As part of our mission, we have been working tirelessly on expanding the protection space for domestic workers. We provide legal aid with our partners. We also do training and support services to ensure that domestic workers are aware of their rights and have access to the resources they need to defend them. Our efforts also include collaborating with various stakeholders to advocate for legislative changes that better protect domestic workers and enhance their working conditions. As we reflect on the journey we have traveled, it is clear that there is much more to be proud of, but also much more to be done. The road to securing dignity and decent work for domestic workers is long, but it is a journey we are committed to taking. We must continue to advocate for the ratification of conventions, ILO conventions C-189 and C-190 for fair wages, reasonable working hours, and safe working conditions. We must ensure that domestic workers have access to social protections, including health care, and that their contributions to our society are recognized and valued. In the words of Eleanor Roosevelt, The future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams. Today, we dream of a future where domestic workers are treated with dignity and respect that they deserve. We dream of a future where their labor is valued and their rights are protected. And we believe that by working together, we can make this dream a reality. Let us use this day to recommit ourselves to the cause of domestic workers. Let us celebrate their contributions and continue to fight for their rights. Together, we can re-envision decent work for domestic workers and create a more just and equitable society for all. Thank you all for being here, for your support and for your dedication to this cause. Let us celebrate, let us reflect, and let us continue to strive for a future where dignity in labor is not just a theme, but a reality for every domestic worker. Thank you, and once again, Happy International Domestic Workers Day. Warembo hoye! Warembo hoye! Asanteni.
Asante sana Edith Morogo, who's the Executive Director from the Center for Domestic Training and Development. And I would like to keep this program going by inviting a group that is leading or has initiated a survivors-led project in Kenya for domestic worker returnees, and that is the Global Justice Group, represented here by the legal advisor and program manager, Stephanie Marigo. Karibu sana. Let's give her a hand clap as she makes her way to the stage.
Hamjambo. I had planned to start my speech with a song, but as fate would have it, my voice has gone. But we continue. Sivyo. Migrant domestic workers mpo. Returnee migrant domestic workers mpo. Domestic workers mpo. All right. Happy to be here today. Happy International Domestic Workers Day. And Honorable Shadrach Mwadime, PS for the State Department for Labor, the Commissioner for Labor, presented by the Deputy Commissioner, development partners, private sector, CSOs, and our very important and distinguished guests present today here, domestic workers. Good morning. All right, allow me to request us to start with a moment of silence to remember all those domestic workers who have died as a result of abuse and exploitation in Kenya and outside Kenya. Thank you. All right. Today we gather to commemorate International Domestic Workers Day, a momentous occasion that not only celebrates the contributions of domestic workers, but also highlights the challenges they face. As migrant domestic workers, they play a vital role in homes worldwide, often leaving behind their own families to care for others. Their journey is one of resilience and dedication. They embody the strength in the face of adversity, striving daily to provide comfort and support to those that they serve. Their efforts are too often overlooked and undervalued. They work tirelessly, often in the shadows, navigating unfamiliar cultures and languages with grace and dignity. Thank you. Today, let us recognize and celebrate their achievements. Let us honor the bonds that they forge with the families that they serve, the bonds built on trust and compassion. Their work transcends borders and cultures, enriching lives and bridging gaps that others may not ever see. However, amidst their contributions lies a call for justice and equality. Too many of them endure exploitation, discrimination, and abuse. Their rights are often disregarded. Their voices are silenced. It is time to demand for fair treatment, equal pay, dignified working conditions for all domestic workers, all migrant domestic workers, regardless of their nationality or their status. Let this day serve as a catalyst for change. Let us unite in solidarity advocating for the rights of domestic workers and the rights of future generations. Together, we believe we can break down barriers and create a world where every domestic worker is valued, respected, and empowered. About 2.1 million women are employed in households across the Middle East under the exploitative kafala system. This system gives the employer sponsorship permit to bring in foreign workers, which bind workers to their employers and allows for exploitation. Workers are often openly auctioned either on the black market or online. About 93.7 Kenyans, returnees from the Middle East, have suffered one form or another of forced labor, psychological abuse, or physical abuse. Global Justice Group has initiated a survival-led project in Kenya with the purpose of providing survivors with restorative justice and ending exploitation, abuse, and killing of women migrating to Saudi Arabia as domestic workers. We believe that survival-led actions directed at obtaining remedy have the power to impact the status of world justice. As we commemorate this day, let us reaffirm our commitment to justice and dignity. Let us stand tall knowing that the work of domestic workers and migrant workers is indispensable and their voices are powerful. Together, we believe that they can achieve a future where every domestic worker and migrant domestic worker is treated with the respect and dignity that they serve. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you very much. That's Stephanie Marigo, Legal Advisor and Programs Manager from the Global Justice Group. And in a moment, we'll be getting into the entertainment by our band, Ninga Flames. But before that, I would like to invite to the stage Mr. George Kinyua, who is the representative of the Kenya Association of Private Employment Agencies, to come and give his welcoming remarks. George? Is George here? Or a representative? From Kapea? Okay. Let's call on our band to give us some entertainment before we continue with our speeches. Ninga Flames, the floor is yours. Tuwapigie makofi tafadhali.
Mtaamka tu tucheze vile nilikuwa tunacheza. Usiogope. Tafadhali tusimame tu.
Mwana wa meli bayaje. Mwana wa meli bayaje woi. Mwana wa meli. Oye. Mwana wa meli bishepoero. Mwana wa meli bayaje. Mwana wa meli. Yeye. Mwana wa meli bishepoero. Mwana wa meli bayaje. Mwana wa meli. Yeye. Mwana wa meli bishepoero.
Hii ni wakati wa kubwa kucheza sasa. The two tables kindly. Hata hii tunataka hii pesa.
Era mafuta kawakula. Mwana wa meli. Mwana wa meli bishepoero. Era mafuta kawakulewe. Mwana wa meli. Mwana wa meli bishepoero. Era ikuku ya wakula. Mwana wa meli. Mwana wa meli bishepoero. Era ikuku ya wakulewe. Mwana wa meli. Mwana wa meli bishepoero.
Haya, unaruka kidogo. Unaruka kidogo. This is the spirit.
Era shila rosha wakula. Mwana wa meli. Mwana wa meli bishepoero. Era shila rosha wakulewe. Mwana wa meli. Mwana wa meli bishepoero. Era isuti ya wakula. Mwana wa meli. Mwana wa meli bishepoero. Era isuti ya wakulewe. Mwana wa meli. Mwana wa meli bishepoero.
Ruka tena, ruka tena. Ruka.
Era makura kawakula. Mwana wa meli. Mwana wa meli bishepoero. Era maua kawakulewe. Mwana wa meli. Uzomia Orera maua kawakula Uzomia Orera maua kawakulewe Uzomia
Haya hivi sasa hivi.
Baluya
High five.
Baluya Baluya ye ye Baluya ye
Wawili wawili.
Baluya ye ye Baluya ye
Wawili wawili.
Haya. Nenda chini kidogo.
Chini kidogo.
Chini kidogo. Chini.
Baluya 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 he Baluya he Baluya wo Baluya wo
Wapi nduru? Eh.
Harusi ye Harusi ye Ramule buru ya manyora hena sikuti Ramule buru ya manyora hena sikuti Ramule buru ya manyora hena lipala Ramule buru ya manyora hena lipala
Sie balipala.
Baluya 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 he Baluya he Ramule buru ya manyora hena sikuti Ramule buru ya manyora hena sikuti Oh yeah Ramule buru ya manyora hena lipala
Wapi vigelegele?
Kila mtu.
Abana mbemwe Abana mbemwe Abana mbemwe Abana mbemwe Bashere mbemwe Bashere mbemwe Oh balina mbemwe Balina mbemwe
Mabega.
Eningali jabalya khurama Eningali jabalya khurama Eningali jabalya khurama Eningali jabalya khurama
Nenda hivi sasa.
Baluya nura mukenya Mukenya ikamiwa khayeka Baluya nura mukenya we Mukenya ikamiwa khayeka Bashere nura mukenya Mukenya musete na bakholo Bashere nura mukenya we Musenda mukenya na bakholo Oi
Simkae chini. Wapi vigelegele? Asante sana.
Asante sana Ninga Flames, the band. Asanteni sana kwa kutuchangamsha. Naonekana hiyo ndio fursa ambayo ilikuwa imengojewa na wengi kuja hapa kuonyesha kwamba mnaweza. Lakini kuna wengine kidogo ninaona ni kama hawana mifupa kwenye mabega. Wengine nao nikawaona kwamba magoti hayana nguvu. Haya, sawa sawa. Asanteni sana. Hata tunapoketi, ningependa hivi sasa kuendelea na baadhi ya hotuba ambazo zimepangiwa hapa. At this juncture, allow me to introduce Ms. Grace Banya from ILO CAPSA to give her remarks on this day as we mark the International Domestic Workers Day. Karibu sana. Makofi tafadhali.
Home managers, oye! Oye, oye! What a joy. I was so privileged to come and speak after such a beautiful dance. Thank you so much, our homemakers, our home managers, the chief guest, the principal secretary, Minister of Labor, Social Development, Mr. Shedrack Mwadime, the Central Organization of Trade Unions, represented here by Mr. Njeru, Federation of Kenya Employers, KUDEA in your own right, Oxfam, departments, agencies, and all the civil society organizations represented here, and our most important guests, the house managers. Good morning. Ladies and gentlemen, I stand here to represent our director for the country office, Tanzania, Uganda, Kenya, Rwanda, and Burundi, Ms. Caroline Mugara Kamati. She's unable to join you today, but sends her greetings and congratulations to the government, social partners, and all stakeholders who have, over the years, supported the work of the ILO to realize the rights of domestic workers in Kenya. But allow me to just say a few remarks on my own behalf to congratulate you all house managers. Congratulations. And oye, oye. We believe you, we appreciate you, and it's always my pleasure to come to this day. I always look forward, actually, to participate at this event. There's so much vibe, there's so much energy, and you are the people that make our lives move. So thank you very much. I'll now read the speech. It gives me immense pleasure to join you and the rest of the world to commemorate the International Day for Domestic Workers 2024. The ILO appreciates the contribution domestic workers make to the global economy, and in particular, Kenya's economy. The ILO is committed to the improvement of working conditions of domestic workers globally and in Kenya, and this is achieved through a various number of programs and interventions, both at global and national levels, including strengthening national institutions, support to policy and legal reforms, helping to strengthen domestic workers and employers' organizations, stimulate and inform policy debates on advancing decent work for domestic workers, providing information on terms and conditions of employment for all domestic workers, on policy issues and approaches to address them around the world. Ladies and gentlemen, ratifying the Domestic Workers Convention number 189 is a critical endeavor that we cannot emphasize enough. Ratifying Convention 189 will mean decent work will be realized for all domestic workers. Globally, the demand for paid work is growing, and with an increasing number of countries facing a care crisis due to large numbers of care needs and rather large needs for care and also for aging populations. Among paid workers, which include nurses, teachers, doctors, or personal care workers. Domestic workers provide direct and indirect care services to private households. They can be hired directly by the household or through a public or private sector provider. The ILO estimates that globally there are about 75.9 million domestic workers over the age of 15 years. And these include hired directly by households and those working through a service provider, as I mentioned earlier. In some countries, domestic workers come from groups that are exposed to discrimination. For example, in Latin America, many domestic workers are of Afro descent or indigenous people who often face discrimination. So we at the ILO, ladies and gentlemen, we focus our attention on domestic workers because they provide essential services to millions of households in Kenya. They are also vital to the care economy. At the same time, they are most vulnerable and abused and exploited. And the people we have in the room today who are our shining stars often suffer all this that I have mentioned. Domestic workers play an integral role in care provision, even counting those employed directly at households, and contribute immensely to the economy. So domestic workers who meet our home care needs should be given their right place in our society. They often do not have access to labor rights and social protection. They lack access to services, both health and other services, and their own families as well. So these gaps of protection and care, our chief guest, we need to take serious focus on this, because even for the social protection services that are being offered nationally, the domestic workers are left out many times. The extent to which domestic workers enjoy formal employment and decent work notably depends on the intersecting issues such as organization and financing of care, employment arrangements, for example, having contracts, being able to rest, and having a minimum wage. So we recognize, ladies and gentlemen, and our chief guest, that domestic workers and care workers within our national care policies really need to be thought about seriously, especially with the social security systems that are in place. And so this day, we want to, more than ever, as we commemorate the day for 2024, recognize the intense need that we need to focus on their well-being. I want also to highlight that trade unions, along with domestic workers' organizations, play a key role in organizing, promoting, and protecting domestic workers' rights. And we do recognize the important role they play, because social dialogue, including domestic workers' organizations and employers of domestic workers, should be really at the center of the needs and how they bring them up to the fore. Most importantly, it is expected that once ratification of Convention 189 is realized by the government of Kenya, the domestic workers will be protected from all violence, harassment, which is caused by the nature of their work and requires them to work behind closed doors and in isolation with limited power within the employment relations to be able to bargain for their needs. I can't overemphasize the ratification, our dear chief guest. So the ILO, as I wind up, is committed to see Kenya championing ratification of Convention 189 and 190, and will provide all the support required for further implementation of the policies and programs that will operationalize the domestication of these two conventions. I conclude dear ladies and gentlemen, and our chief guests, by congratulating all of you who are here to join the rest of the world to commemorate the World Day for Domestic Workers, by celebrating and saluting the homemakers, the home managers, those who make our lives easy, by thanking them for the immense contribution they make to our lives, to the economy, and the individual households at which they work. And before I sit down, I also want to take this opportunity to thank very, very much our Principal Secretary for having made time to come to be with us after a very long trip to Geneva and being at the International Labour Conference. Sir, we are grateful that you are able to spare time, tired as you are, but please enjoy the time you are here. Thank you to all the support from Oxfam, CDTD, the Global Justice Group, the Association of Skilled Migrant Agencies, the Kenya Association of Private Employment Agencies, and all of you who put this day together. Thank you so much, and I wish you a very successful commemoration. Domestic workers, oye! Tujienjoy, oye! Thank you so much.
Asante sana, Grace Banya. And as we continue with the speeches, I would like to welcome the Secretary General from KUDHEIHA to make his brief remarks. Brother Albert Njero, karibu sana.
Domestic workers are all about service. When they come together, they realize there is need of social protection. There is need of unity, and there is a need to make sure that they are protected and their social security, social protection is number one. Irrespective of many things, we need to cooperate together for an PS. From all workers' training institutions, from all workers of private agencies, we should not be fighting. We should be talking one language. These are our brothers and sisters. How do we protect? How do we champion their rights? For an PS, I don't want to talk much because I know we are with you. But collaboration is the only way out. Any domestic work can be able to succeed. As many as of us who can be able to say hi to domestic workers, let's say that. Hi. Domestic workers? Domestic workers? There is no other way to do it except to celebrate the day. With those many ones, because I'm told the PS is supposed to be coming to talk to us, and he is my boss, I want to say one thing. Please, social justice must begin with us. God bless you and take care of you.
Asante sana. We've listened to the unions, we've listened to our partners. It's about time that we listen to the government. And allow me to now invite, on behalf of the Labor Commissioner, the Deputy Commissioner, Millicent Muli, who will make some brief remarks, and then invite the Principal Secretary, Ministry of Labor. Karibu sana.
Good morning, everybody, and happy International Domestic Workers' Day. On behalf of the Labor Commissioner and the Department of Labor, mine will be very brief. It's just to invite our chief guest, the Principal Secretary at the State Department of Labor, Mr. Shadrach Modime, to address this gathering. I do not want to preempt what he would say, but as a department, we normally receive we are mandated to deal with disputes. Some of them emanate from domestic workers, And in a year, we receive more than 10,000. Last year, we received 11,312 disputes across the country. And we work very closely with our partners. We work very closely with KUDEA and other unions. KUDEA basically represents the domestic workers, and we work very closely. We are committed to ensuring that the rights of domestic workers are protected. With those very many remarks, I wish to have this honor to invite our Principal Secretary to address you. Domestic workers, oh yeah! Yeah, karibu. Yes.
Thank you very much. While you are still standing, those of you who are not domestic workers, if you can be upstanding kindly, I want us to celebrate our domestic workers. Nyinyi kaeni. Nataka wengine wanajiita wadosi ndo wasimame. I want us to celebrate our domestic workers because truly they play a critical role in our families, in our economy. I want us to celebrate them with a major hand clap. Asanteni, asanteni sana. Please take your seat. Hamjambo tena. I'm also celebrating my house manager today, Miss Grace Sarah Wangari. She has been my house manager for the last 15 years. Can you imagine? And therefore, my children's development is as a result of her effort, of course, together with my wife. And out of our partnership, I've also seen her family develop, her children. One of her children is at Kisii University undertaking a degree in journalism. Another one is a police officer, as it is currently. And the third one will be migrating to work abroad very, very soon. He has already started the process of getting a passport and eventually going abroad. So you can see what that partnership can do. It's not only us as employers who benefit from your work, but you also benefit from the remunerations that we give you. You're able to take care of your families. Isn't it wonderful when you work together, you know, in a peaceful and conducive environment? Si ndio inatakikana namna hiyo? Ili tujijenge, wewe unajengeka na mimi nafanyaje? Najengeka. Indeed, I would possibly not be a principal secretary today were it not for the effort of Sarah Wangari huko nyumbani akifanya kazi na kuchunga watoto wangu. I've had peace of mind and therefore I've concentrated on my work. I've worked with a lot of diligence and eventually climbed the ladder to the position, you know, that I am in as it is today. So the representative of the Commissioner for Labor, Millicent Muli, the representative of Central Organization of Trade Unions, Mr. Njeru, the representative of the Federation of Kenya Employers, Grace Banya, my friend, the ILO CAPSA project, all organizations and civil societies represented, public servants from various government departments, domestic workers present, all protocols observed. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It gives me great pleasure and honor to join you in this commemoration of the International Day for Domestic Workers. The choice of the month of June to commemorate this day is traced back to 16th June 2011, when the International Labour Organization Convention number 189 and recommendation number 201 on decent work for domestic workers, that is C189, was adopted during the 100th session of the International Labour Conference. Ladies and gentlemen, indeed, the domestic workers are sometimes excluded from protection by the existing labor laws or are treated less favorably than other wage workers in other sectors. But every year, on the 16th of June, the International Domestic Workers' Day is marked in order to mobilize all stakeholders the world over to call for respect and justice for all domestic workers. Domestic workers have used this day to honor the vibrancy of the leadership of domestic workers in the fight for better protection across the world. The ILO Convention 189 is an important step towards achieving decent working and living conditions, respect for human rights, and access to social protection for domestic workers around the world. This is therefore an opportunity for us to acknowledge the important role that domestic workers play in our society, to raise awareness about the challenges that they face, and promote social dialogue and cooperation between domestic workers, employers, government, and other stakeholders. Domestic workers are the backbone to our homes and family, and they deserve to be treated with respect and dignity. Today, we celebrate their contribution to our economy and their dedication to their work. Ladies and gentlemen, today highlights the importance of fair treatment, living wages, social protection, and decent working conditions for domestic workers. In Kenya, domestic workers are an integral part of our society. They provide services to families across the country, and they are an important source of employment. Since 2019, Kenya has trained over 7,000 domestic workers monthly for the global market, especially the Gulf Cooperation Council countries of Qatar, United Arab Emirates, and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, where we have bilateral agreements for unskilled labor. The training curriculum administered by the National Industrial Training Authority has since been reviewed to address the emerging challenges being faced by the sector. Ladies and gentlemen, the theme this year, Dignity in Labor, Re-envisioning Decent Work for Domestic Workers, resonates with the commitment of the International Labour Organization to promote decent work for all through the achievement of the goals of the ILO Declaration on Fundamental Principles and Rights at Work and the ILO Declaration on Social Justice for a Fair Globalization, and recognizing the significant contribution of domestic workers to the global economy. According to available data, there are nearly 76 million workers employed to work in someone's home all over the world. These domestic workers clean, cook, do laundry, provide care to children and the elderly, and a lot more. Their work is at times undervalued, underpaid, invisible, not recognized, and not respected, unfortunately. And the majority of domestic workers, 82%, are women, many are migrants or children. In many countries, domestic workers are excluded from labor legislation and social protection schemes. Many are denied the right, either in law or in practice, to form or join a trade union. As a result, mistreatment, exploitation, violence, and physical and sexual abuse are frequent and often go unpunished. Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, once said, "When we achieve human rights and human dignity for all people, we build a peaceable, sustainable, and just world. According to the ILO research statistics, 75.6 million people are employed as domestic workers globally, and in Kenya, the estimates given is over 2 million. It is therefore critical to address the issues that emanate from this sector in a comprehensive way. The International Labour Organization has been instrumental in pushing for legal protection that recognizes domestic work as formal employment with defined labor rights. Ladies and gentlemen, the ILO Convention 189 is an important step towards achieving decent working and living conditions, respect for human rights, fundamental rights, and access to social protection to domestic workers around the world. By advocating for the rights of domestic workers and working to improve their working conditions, we can create a world where all workers are treated with respect and dignity that they deserve. In so doing, that wasn't me. In so doing, we can create a brighter future for all Kenyans. This is the aspiration of ILO Convention number C189 and C190. The process of ratification of ILO Domestic Workers Convention number 189 and Violence and Harassment Convention number 190 is an acknowledgement that it is at an advanced stage of public participation to give way for finalization of the ratification process. An ambitious roadmap was developed in collaboration with various stakeholders who are even present here today. As government, we are putting in efforts towards ratification of the conventions, which will increase protection of domestic workers both within and outside the country. I commit to drive the process to finality within the shortest time possible, and I call upon all our partners to support the ongoing public participation exercise, which is intended to take place all over the country in compliance with Article 10 of our Constitution. Ladies and gentlemen, the International Domestic Workers' Day is an opportunity for us to recognize the important contribution that domestic workers make to our society. We must work to safeguard their rights and protect them from abuse and exploitation. We must also work to raise awareness about the challenges that they face. Every domestic worker is entitled to fair labor practice, decent jobs, and better wages, and a safe and healthy working environment. Despite the perception that private households defer their traditional workplaces, they pose similar risks to occupational safety and health. Domestic workers often encounter various hazards, including chemical, ergonomic, physical, psychosocial, and biological risks due to the diverse tasks they perform. Limited awareness of these dangers, coupled with insufficient legal protection and challenges in inspecting private homes, leaves domestic workers particularly vulnerable. I urge employers of domestic workers to implement minimum wages remuneration, better terms and conditions of employment, and measures to safeguard their employees against occupational diseases and injuries. It is essential to recognize domestic work as legitimate employment and ensure that workers are adequately protected. The Ministry of Labor and Skills Development is committed to collaborating with all stakeholders to create a conducive working environment for domestic workers, and together we can uphold the rights and well-being of domestic workers in our nation. I therefore call upon the Labor and OSH directorates and all other law enforcement agencies to intensify labor inspection with a view of ascertaining full adherence to labor laws, including guaranteeing of the occupational safety and health, social security, and access to voluntary trade union representation. Ladies and gentlemen, in the last decade, Kenya has recorded increase in the migration of domestic workers to other countries, especially the Gulf countries. This has resulted in employment creation and boost in foreign remittances. The benefits have come with challenges, which include distress calls, family disintegration, among others. The Ministry of Labor is in the process of negotiating new bilateral labor agreements and reviewing the existing ones to address some of the challenges in employment contracts. The ministry is also in the process of concluding establishment of the safe houses in destination countries and creation of migrant welfare fund to caution migrant workers in distress. In conclusion, I wish to thank all the organizations who supported and took part in organizing this event. I am aware that you pooled resources to make this day a reality. I also wish to thank the International Labour Organization for their support through various projects, including ILO CAPSA, ILO AXEL, just to mention a few, towards promotion of social justice in our country. I also wish to thank all the domestic workers who found time to attend this commemoration. Indeed, this is your day. I further wish to assure you that the government will protect you in your place of work to enable you to enjoy your work and become productive, and therefore improving your livelihoods as well as contributing to our economic growth. Last but not least, I'm grateful to be part of this event and wish you all a very fruitful discussion. Thank you, and may God bless you. Wacha niseme hivi pia kwa haraka kwamba serikali hii inawatambua sana. Mnafahamu wakati wa campaigns, Kenya Kwanza ilikuwa inasema kazi ni kazi. Si ndio namna hiyo? Kazi ni kazi. And the object was to ensure that those who are at the bottom of the economic pyramid wameletwa juu. That is what better is all about. Kwa hivyo, mimi nimekuja hapa kwa niaba ya serikali kusema kwamba tunawatambua, tunatambua kazi yenu. You're also playing a very critical role in terms of the expansion of our economy, economic growth. Zile mshahara mnapata tunajua zinasaidia watoto wenyu waweze kusoma, wafaulu, wawe pia wataweza baadaye kujumuika na Wakenya wengine kusaidia uchumi wetu. Nimetaja mwenzangu ambaye yuko kwa boma yangu na kile ambacho amefanya kwa watoto wake, mahali ambapo wamefikia kwa wakati huu. So you are playing a very critical role. Sio hivyo, pia tumeona wengine wenyu mmeanza biashara na mumeweza kuandika hata wengine, na wengine ambao wameenda huko ng'ambo wameweza kurudisha pesa hizo kwa uchumi wetu, na uchumi wetu unazidi kupanuka. Niseme tu hasa kuhusiana na wenzetu ambao wako zile nchi za Uarabuni ambao pengine wameteseka kwa njia moja ama ingine, zile bilateral agreements, labor agreements ambazo tunaunda kwa wakati huu are human rights based, na tumetia mkazo kwa jambo hilo. Hatuwezi kuacha dada zetu, hatuwezi kuacha mama zetu wakitaabika huko na sisi tunafunga macho tu kwamba hatuoni. Tunajitahidi kwa mambo kadhaa, strategies ambazo tunaweka. Ya kwanza ni kuunda safe houses, ili mmoja wetu akipata shida akiwa huko ng'ambo ataweza kukimbilia pale aweze kupata usalama. Ya pili, tumepeana a distress call number, toll free number. Haulipi hata chochote ukiwa huko ng'ambo. Tuko na namba hiyo, unapiga ili serikali iweze kujua kwa haraka ni taabu gani ambao uko nayo huko. Ya tatu, tutaongeza labor attaches kwa hizo nchi ili tuwe na wafanyakazi wetu wa serikali ambao wanaweza kuafikiana na wewe kwa haraka iwezekanavyo. Indeed, Cabinet last year in August approved the establishment of labor attaché offices in 7 countries. Kwa hivyo, kulingana na pesa ambazo tuko nazo za mwaka huu wa Julai kuendelea, basi tutaweza kuwatuma hawa ili mtu akipata shida huko aweze kuafikiana na maafisa wetu wa serikali kwa haraka na apate msaada. Alafu ya mwisho, kwa sababu kila nchi iko na constitution ambayo it's human rights based, there is no question about it. We want to study the legal frameworks that obtain in these countries, and we'll be sending lawyers out there so that they can study the laws, the constitutions that obtain in these countries, and we use them to the advantage of our own people. There are other countries that have done the same. Philippines has done that, and they have succeeded greatly in safeguarding the interests of their people. So this is not something new or strange. We too can be able to do it. Kwa hivyo, sisi kama serikali hatulali masikio, tunajaribu vile tuwezavyo ili kuhakikisha haki zenyu zimetiliwa mkazo, haki zenyu zimeangaliwa, msije mkapata shida kwa njia yoyote ama kwa jinsi yote. Convention 189 and 190 tayari tumeweka mikakati. Ni kweli Uganda pamoja na Rwanda wako mbele yetu, hatutawachwa nyuma. In accordance with our constitution, we'll have to call for a stakeholders forum in every county, or if it is not county, the old provinces, the 8 old provinces, so that we can consult also with the people, because we don't want this matter to end up in court. Kenyans can be a little bit, litigious over very small and minute issues, and we don't want to end up there. And therefore, we will do whatever is required in accordance with the Constitution, in accordance with the law, but do it as fast as possible so that we're able to ratify Convention 189 and 190. Na kwa hayo machache, kwa sababu watu wa serikali hata wakiongea kwa muda mrefu bado wanasema ni machache, Mungu awabariki sana.
Asante sana Bwana PS, na kwa heshima yako ningekuomba uweze kufika hapa jukwani pamoja na wale wote ambao wamepata fursa ya kuzungumza asubuhi hii ya leo, ili tuweze kuwa na picha ambazo zitatumika na partners wetu. Karibuni. Wale wote waliozungumza tuweze kufika pale mbele. Partners from CDTD, Global Justice Group, Oxfam, ASMAC, CAPEA, KUDHEIHA, the National Employment Authority, Labor Migration Management Directorate, the Directorate of Labor. Na hiyo picha inapopigwa pia, ningependa tuweze kujitayarisha domestic workers so that we can join in the final photo. Hiyo picha inapopigwa, tuanze tu kuelekea jukwani tafadhali. Domestic workers, please. Karibuni, hii siku ni yenu. We can spread out so that we can all fit. You can go to the other side. Photographers, mkitosheka mtatuambia. Kama hawaja smile vizuri, wa smile. Semeni cheese. Domestic workers hoye. Asanteni sana. Asanteni sana. As we take our seats, I would like to sincerely thank our chief guest, the PS from the Ministry of Labor, Shadrach Mwadime, and all the partners. The PS will be leaving in a short while for other engagements. But at this juncture, I would like to introduce some entertainment, which is a skit by domestic workers returnees. And I would like the representatives to come here and just tell us a little bit about what this skit entails. Then we will be able to watch it. The representatives of the domestic workers returnees who have a skit, karibuni sana, tuwapigie makofi wanapofika hapa mbele. Hayo sio makofi ya kilo, makofi mengine tafadhali.
Hamjambo, domestic workers hoye, migrant returnees mko wapi? Haya, hamko? Gai, hamko? Migrant returnees hoye, domestic workers hoye. Domestic workers Kenya msipotee sana, sisi ni wale tulitoka nje tukarudi. Tuko pamoja? Aya, bila kupoteza muda, ladies and gentlemen, Permanent Secretary, allow me to ride on the protocol that have been already observed. I'm Sophia Mimo, survivor leader, survivor advocate, and founder of Domestic Workers Returnees of Kenya. Our organization is hosted by CDTD under the Pillar 3 of Labor Migration.
Thank you, Amimo. Hamjambo. Hamjambo. Ladies and gentlemen, our Permanent Secretary, allow me to ride on the protocols that have already been observed. I am Wills, a photographer, writer, and researcher in the anti-trafficking sector. I work with Jafari Jatta together with Rock Kenya, and our offices are hosted by CDTD.
So kiasi tu kabla tuanze skiti yetu ambayo ni ya pre-departure, tungependa tu kusema ya kwamba tunashukuru sana. We have been vile mmetu recognize and na vile mmetupatia hii fursa. Today we stand together on International Domestic Workers Day, a day dedicated to honoring and recognizing the invaluable contribution of domestic workers across the globe. It is with great pride and gratitude that we, survivors, returnees, and lived experience experts of human trafficking, modern slavery, have this platform to express our voices and share our stories. Before we proceed, we extend our heartfelt sympathies to those affected by the recent floods. The heavy rains have brought challenges, but it is our collective resilience that we see us through these times.
We were told to rush, so we are trying to cut everything we wanted to say. So I'm going to go to the points. A pressing concern that has come to our attention is the plight of the over 300 migrant workers in Saudi Arabia, including their undocumented children. We have reached out to CDTD, the Counter Trafficking in Person CTIP office, and IOM Kenya for support. We implore our government to urgently engage with the Saudi authorities to facilitate the safe returns of our compatriots. Some of the children are sick and need urgent attention. Some are school age and cannot attend school, left to roam the streets. There's no place like home. And it's our duty to ensure that every Kenyan can return safely. Lastly, we also call upon our government to recognize, celebrate International Domestic Workers Day with the same vigor and inclusivity as other public events, as Ms. Bladina from Oxfam recently said in a UN conference, and I quote, "Domestic workers are part of our economy, and without them, we wouldn't be here in this conference. Without domestic workers to take care of our homes, we would not have made it today." And I add that, Bwana PS, you supported this, and I heard you clearly, and I like the way you appreciate your house manager. This recognition will provide a platform for all key players and a large number of domestic workers across Kenya to be heard and be acknowledged. With that, please enjoy our pilot, the pre-departure documentary, We Survivor Leaders and Advocates Co-Created. Pamoja.
Tunaweza.
Ai.
Tunawaambia wote.
Pamoja.
Tunaweza.
Pamoja. Pamoja. Thank you.
In the shadows of our homes, where silence echoes pain and neglect, lies a story that demands to be heard. This is not just a tale of chores and duties, but a haunting reality faced by countless unsung heroes.
Ngoja. Unafanya nini?
Wewe ni nani? Hata salamu huna leo.
Unafanya nini?
Hata salamu huna.
Salamu nini? Enda upike hizo.
Hizo mboga sitapika na hiyo madhara.
Enda pika
wewe.
Meet Celestine, whose journey has been marred by the harsh realities of exploitation and mistreatment.
Ni mimi sikufanyia.
Kila kitu nifanyie. Si mapenzi, si raha, kazi kunigombanisha, kunipiga kila siku. Nataka nini?
Lakini kuenda si sorry.
Hiyo
Well, hello there. My name is Nina Shaban, and as you can see, the celebrations of International Domestic Workers Day is still continuing right here in Mozambique, in the capital city, Nairobi. Now, the day is actually celebrated or commemorated across the globe on the 16th of June. But in Kenya, it was done on the 18th of June because of other celebrations that we had prior. Now, I am joined by the Principal Secretary of Labor Skills and Development, that is Mr. Shadrach Madime. And thank you so much for joining us, Bwana PS. Let's start off with a theme this year, which is Dignity in Labor's Re-envisioning Decent Work for Domestic Workers. How will the government assist attain this theme?
Now, you do realize that the current administration, the Kenya Kwanza administration, was elected on the platform of improving the standard of living of those who are at the bottom of the economic pyramid. That is the reason why we are here as government to celebrate the day, the International Day of Domestic Workers, to appreciate their effort. You remember we said kazi ni kazi. It doesn't matter the kind of engagement that you are involved in, so long as you are making a contribution to the economy of the country, we recognize you. So we are here to recognize domestic workers. They play a very critical role. I can give a testimony personally on the effort that one of my domestic workers has made towards the development of my own children, you know, and my own development because of the peace that I've had as she takes care of, you know, my family, my children. I'm able to concentrate on my work and to excel. So as government, we do recognize domestic workers and we want to do whatever is required to ensure they work in a very safe and conducive environment.
All right, thank you, Bernard Pierce. Now, what is the status, and I know you've already spoken about it and as you were making your last remarks, but in detail, what is the status of the ratification of the ILO Convention 189 and 190? 2 million domestic workers were hoping that President William Ruto would actually touch on this during Labor Day, but to no avail. So can you please give us in detail?
He gave a directive to that effect during the celebrations last year, and the process has begun. As you're well aware, in accordance with our constitution, we have to consult with all stakeholders before we ratify such a convention. And therefore, we had a meeting in Machakos in February this year, where we brought on board the civil society and many other organizations. We want to go to the grassroots level now. In fact, in our program, in our plans, we intend to consult with Kenyans at the grassroots level in about 8 of our former provinces. You know, so we'll go to Kisumu, we'll go to Mombasa, you know, we'll go to Garissa, at least touch on all these geographical locations in the country so as to get the views of Kenyans. And thereafter, after we get their views, we'll be able to consolidate the same and be able to now present our bill in Parliament so that the ratification is done.
All right. So are you willing to give us a time frame?
Hopefully before December this year, we should be able to do it. There are other countries in Africa, within the East African region, that have gone ahead of us. Uganda is already ahead of us. Rwanda is already ahead of us. So we have to pull up our socks and ensure that it is done as soon as possible.
As soon as possible. Yeah. Well, thank you very much. Is there anything that you'd like to add?
My appeal to Kenyans to respect domestic workers. They play a very critical role. I think for a number of years they have been looked down upon. It's high time we recognize their role in society and respect that which they do on a daily basis. I also want to call upon those Kenyans who employ children that we are going to be very firm about it. Indeed, we've already established children labor committees. We already have 4, but we are going to ensure all the counties have their labor committees operational so that they can be a little bit hawk-eyed to ensure children are not employed as domestic workers.
Well, thank you very much. That's the Principal Secretary of Labour, that is Mr. Shadrack Mademe. We are also joined by, thank you very much, sir. Just if you could please take Mr. Mwademe's position. We are also joined by Blandina Ejacha Bobson, who is the Director of Programs, Oxfam. And Blandina, sorry. It's lovely to have you. Thank you very much. Let's start off with the role that Oxfam really plays in this particular event.
So our role as a civil society organization is, first of all, gathering evidence, compelling evidence that we can use to influence policies both at the national and the global level. And the domestic workers sector is one of those sectors that has very minimal evidence that we can use to engage the government, we can use to engage other stakeholders for us to be able to challenge the status quo. So we've been working and investing in different research pieces that are being used right now to advocate for the ratification of C-189 and C-190. Other than that, we have programs that we're implementing jointly with our partners, KUDEIHA, Youth Alive Kenya, Association of Women in Agriculture in Kenya, at the grassroots level, which target domestic workers. And the initiative is based on the fact that we are aware that some of them don't have their right. So we use these organizations to mobilize and organize them, educate them on their rights, and also represent them in different spaces where they need to be able to demand for their rights. But also the biggest barrier has been around the perceptions that exist as far as domestic worker is concerned, which is also one of the things that is holding us back as far as getting some of these instruments ratified. So there's a huge public campaign going on just to try and sensitize Kenyans on the importance of domestic work, tell them how much it's contributing to the economy, but also the well-being of our society, because without them, all of us would not have been able to come to this event today.
All right,
yeah.
Let's touch on the contribution that they have into the economy. Can you just give us your sentiments on that?
So both from the perspective of they allow us to go and do the paid work, They allow me to leave my house and go and deliver my duties as an employee of Oxfam. But other than that is also the contributions that come in, from the ones that are working in the outside the country. They bring in a lot of remittances. And, from the KNBS economic survey, in the year 2022, they literally contributed about 79.4 billion of the GDP. So it's not a small amount, and we cannot ignore them. We undervalue them. We don't want to recognize, this contribution that they're bringing to the economy, and this has to change. We have to value them as, other workers are valued. Yeah.
All right. Now let's shift gears to our theme today for this particular International Domestic Workers Day. What are your thoughts on it?
Sorry, what?
The theme.
The theme is around basically re-envisioning decent work for all domestic workers. And that is why we are all here together, trying to put our heads together and see how we can do this. It's not just about the policies that we are advocating to be, enacted and ratified. There's a lot of effort that needs to happen even at the grassroots level for people to change their mindsets on how they perceive domestic work. We shouldn't look at it as work that is done by people who have, exhausted all options or have nothing else to do. This should be work that, as Blandina, I can proudly, say, I want to be a domestic worker, that we have children growing up who would want or aspire to be domestic workers because it is valued work. So there's changing the perceptions. There is policy work that we need, of course, to work on, but more importantly, recognizing it as valued work, making them more visible, and hearing and amplifying their voices.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Blandina, unless you have anything to add.
Nothing much. I guess it's the same call for appeal for everyone. Let's all realize that we cannot function without domestic workers. We cannot go about our business without domestic workers. So let's try and, uphold their rights, both labor rights and human rights. Let's protect them in our homes, and let's treat them as humans.
Well, thank you very much. And I think that's just about it for the updates that we have right here at the International Domestic Workers Day at Movenpick in Nairobi. We are going back inside to just continue with the event. And in our subsequent bulletins, of course, at 7 and 9 p.m., I shall be giving you a full report on what has transpired by the end of the event. My name is Nina Shaban.